All right, this is lab 8, configuring DNS zones. What we're gonna do in this lab is seven exercises. The first one is gonna be installing DNS. Then we're gonna do create a primary and a secondary zone. Then we're gonna create an active directory integrated zone. We're gonna configure a zone delegation. We're going to configure a stub zone, then configure forwarding and conditional forwarding zones. And finally, we're going to configure zone transfers. All right, so let's get started with this lab. Let's go to the first steps. So we're going to start on server 01. So that's where we're going to go. And log in with a customary password. So we're installing DNS. So what we need to do is just add roles and features. I'm going to click next. Role based on this server. And we're going to check DNS server right here and add the feature. I'm going to click next, 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 and install. So the installation is done, and that's the conclusion of exercise 8.1. So let's go ahead and do 8.2. So this time we got to go to the domain controller, RWDC, and log in with the customary password. So we go to Tools, DNS. Notice that this one already has DNS installed. We did install it in server 1, but this one already had it. So we're going to go to the forward lookup zone, and we're going to right click, select new zone, and I'm going to click next. It is primary zone selected by default, but we're going to uncheck store the zone in an active directory and click next. And the name I'm going to give it is adatum.com, and I'm going to click next. On the zone file, we can see that the file was created there, and I'm going to click next. And we're going to make sure that not to allow dynamic updates. So we're going to click next and finish. So we have a standard primary zone. And that's it. That's now let's go ahead and create a standard forward lookup secondary zone. So we're going to go to server 1. So we created a primary zone on the domain controller. We're going to go to server 2. We're going to create a secondary zone. So we're going to go again to server to DNS manager and span the server node. And we're going to go to forward lookup zone. We're going to right click and select new zone. Click next. I'm going to select the secondary zone, click next. And right here, we're going to give it the same name. Click next. And under the IP address, we need to give it 192.168.1.50, and we're going to press the tab key, and that resolves. We're going to click next, and we're going to click finish. So we got our secondary forward lookup zone. Now let's create a reverse lookup primary zone. So right here on RWDC, we're going to go to Tools, DNS. The DNS Manager console appears, and we're going to right click on the reverse lookup zone. We're going to click New Zone. We're going to click Next. On the zone type, we're going to click Next. On the Active Directory Zone Replication Scope, we're going to click Next. On the reverse lookup zone name page, we're going to leave it as AT version 4 reverse lookup zone and click Next. Now we're going to use the network ID. They're not asking for the IP address, they're asking for the network ID. And the network ID in this case is going to be 172.24.1. That's the network ID. I'm going to click Next. On the dynamic update page, we're going to accept the default and we're going to click Next. And click Finish. And now we can span and see that zone has been there. It's been created. And that's the end of 8.2. Now let's go ahead and do exercise 8.3. So right here on RWDC, we're going to go to the manager, the DNS Manager console. And I'm going to right click the forward lookup zone. I'm going to select New Zone. I'm going to click Next. On the zone type, we're going to leave it on primary zone and store the zone in Active Directory and click Next. On the Active Directory zone replication scope, we're going to click Next. Under the zone name, we're going to type fabricam.com and click Next. On the dynamic update page, with the allow only secure dynamic updates selected, we're going to click Next and click Finish. That is the end of exercise 8.3. Okay, exercise 8.5, creating a stub zone. So in this exercise, we're going to create a stub zone that points directly to another DNS server. And what is a stub zone? It's a copy of a zone that contains only necessary resources like start of authority, name server, and address host. And it just acts as a pointer to the authoritative name servers. So right here on RWDZ01, we're going to go to DNS Manager, right click the forward lookup zone, and we're going to create a new zone and click Next. On the zone type, we're going to select the stub zone, and we're going to click Next. On the Active Directory zone replication scope, we're going to accept the defaults and click Next. On the zone name, we're going to call it leadware.com, and we're going to click Next. Under the IP address, we're going to click the tab here, and we're going to type 192.168.1.60, and we're going to press the tab key, and we're going to click Next, and we're going to click Finish. Now in server 1, we go to DNS Manager. We're going to expand server 1, right click, forward lookup zone, and we're going to click New Zone. We're going to click Next, and we're going to click Next. On the zone name, we're going to call it leadware.com, and click Next. On the zone file page name, we're going to just click Next. And on the dynamic update, click Next and Finish. Let's go to RWDC01, and right here, let's select leadware, and then we're gonna refresh, and it is working just fine, even though we got those red marks. And now it's working fine. All right, on this exercise 8.6, we're gonna configure forwarding and conditional forwarding zones, and the purpose is to improve performance. So to improve performance, we can control which DNS servers requests are forwarded to when performing naming resolutions by configuring forwarding and creating conditional forwarding zones. So the mindset is that when a client contacts a DNS server and the DNS server does not know the answer to the request, it performs an interactive query to find the answer, which means it first contacts the root domain and additional DNS servers until it finds the authoritative DNS server for the zone. However, DNS servers can be configured to be forwarded to another DNS server or a conditional forwarder based on the domain's name queries. Okay, so let's go to server 01. Right there on the DNS manager, we're gonna choose. We're gonna right click server 1, and we're gonna go to properties. We're gonna select the forward tab, which is forwarders tab, and then we're gonna click edit. On the IP address, we're gonna type 192.168 1.1.50, and we're gonna press the tab key, and then we're gonna click OK. Now, right here, we're gonna close this, and we're going to configure conditional forwarders. So we're gonna create a primary lookup zone here. Right click, next, primary, click next. We're gonna call it Lucerne Publishing.com, and I'm gonna click next. We accept on the zone file, and click next and finish. Now that we have created the zone, we're gonna go to our WDC, and here we're gonna go to DNS Manager Console. We're gonna click conditional forwarders, and we're gonna right click, and we're gonna create a new conditional forwarder, and we're gonna type Lucerne Publishing.com, and under the IP address, we're gonna type 192.168.1.60. Press tab. That's it. That was 8.6. So if you get a red mark, don't worry, it will just resolve. Okay, the last exercise in this lab is exercise 8.7, and it is about configuring zone transfers. You can configure where the zone information is transferred to. So this is what we're gonna do. So in RWD C, we're going to go to the DNS Manager Console, and we're gonna click the datum forward lookup zone, and we're gonna right click and select properties. We're gonna click on the zone transfer tab. With the allow zone transfer selected, we're gonna click on the only to the following servers radio button, and we're gonna click notify, and we're gonna click the following servers, and under the IP address, we're gonna type 192.168.1.60, and click OK. And click OK. And that is it. That's the end of the exercise. So, and the end of the lab.